All right, well, good afternoon and welcome to Texas 20 and Beyond, an effort created just for you that includes incredible programming and resources for our 2020 grads. My name is Summer Salazar, and I'm the Director of Employer Engagement for Texas Career Engagement at UT, and I'll be moderating today's panel. Texas Career Engagement is dedicated to providing equitable services for all UT students, alumni, and employers. In collaboration with our UT campus and employer partners, our goal is to increase and enhance resources, opportunities, and connections. Before we get started, I just want to offer some quick Zoom etiquette tips for today. All attendees have been muted. If you have any questions, please direct them to the Q&A function that's located at the bottom of your screen. You'll just click on that Q&A option and then you can enter your question. We'll provide some time at the end of this webinar to answer some of those questions, and we can follow up after. A link for closed captioning will be provided in the chat function. And this panel is being recorded and will be posted on our website so that you can access and use it as a resource at a later time. So again, thank you all so much for joining us. We have this incredible panel lined up for you today. It includes 3 incredible guests, and I'd like to begin by sharing some highlights from their bios before giving them an opportunity to share some brief remarks about themselves, their organizations, and what you came to learn more about too is current opportunities. And then we'll dive into the panel discussion followed by some Q&A. So we'll start with Janet Silva. Janet was recently promoted to Human Resource Consultant Diversity Recruiting for the City of Austin. This position is in the Human Resources Division. Janet acts as a diversity consultant for the city's efforts to recruit a strong workforce, both internally and externally. She also leads on developing working relationships with area colleges and universities, as well as developing diversity recruiting marketing programs for the City of Austin. Prior to promotion within the City of Austin, she worked in the Austin Energy Department of the Customer Assistance Program Division, where she led on projects that impacted constituents from socioeconomic populations. Janet holds over 9 years of experience working in with higher education institutions and organizations across Oklahoma and Texas, helping them understand the dynamics of their organizations in the areas of diversity, recruitment, human resource marketing, and overall management of public and private organizations. Originally from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Janet has been in Austin 7 years, and in her spare time, she loves outdoor activities and enjoying spending time with her husband and her children. Matt Korn is a talent advisor for campus recruiting with Charles Schwab, and we are working, I think he's on. Matt, let me see, do I see you? Can I get a positive look if he is on? Matt Korn is campus talent advisor at Charles Schwab. He has been at Schwab for close to 1.5 years, and as a campus talent advisor, he builds relationships with students, faculty, and business partners to hire for internship program as well as early career talent. He has over 7 years of recruiting experience, primarily working with college students throughout his career. Matt is currently happily stuck at home with his wife, his 4-year-old daughter, and 2-year-old twins, a dog and a cat, and a partridge in a pear tree. Matt, so we're excited to hear from him. And Alex Herr is the Global Employer Brand Program Manager for Informatica. Alex Herr leads the global employer brand and recruitment marketing at Informatica across 26 countries. Along with that, he's also a member of the Talent Brand Alliance Marketing Committee. So welcome to our 3 panelists. And now I'll give you all some time to share some remarks about yourselves. Janet, we'll start with you.
Hi, Janet Silva.
Janet, you're on mute. No.
No. You're good.
Hi.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Great.
Yep.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much for that introduction, Summer. Janet Silva with the City of Austin. So one of the great things that I get to do as a part of my job is to engage with universities across Texas and outside of Texas. So again, I mean, to just thank you, Summer, for having me here today and that great introduction. I'm happy to be here to answer any questions about the City of Austin and the opportunities that we currently have for our students and our new graduates.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, hey, Alex here from Informatica. Yeah, thank you again for also inviting me to the panel. I get a chance to not only work with students here locally in Austin, but across the globe. Actually, we're just working with a group of 122 students in India. So pleasure to be with you all today.
In India, tell me a little bit more about that.
So we did our first ever virtual internship. So most of the students were there for a few weeks, and then when the pandemic happened, we had to push everything over to Zoom. And then we're actually in the middle of doing an intern showcase where they can pretty much showcase the projects they're working on to get them away from, because it's easy to get people the students into internships and they're doing mundane tasks that really don't matter. But we want to actually have them do real life tasks where they can help out and contribute to the company. So the showcase gives them a chance to do that, except now it's going to be all virtual. So, like I know some of the questions we have here really focus on that as well. And those kids are actually getting firsthand experience exactly how to operate in the new normal.
That's incredible. I definitely want to talk more about that as we get started.
Sure thing.
All right. Well, we're going to kick it off. So we're thrilled to have you all as a guest because your organizations are great partners of UT, and we're looking forward to continuing that partnership. And you're hiring right now, so that's exciting. And, we want to start with just kind of addressing, we know that our current life has been disrupted, but what opportunities do you believe that have emerged during this time and for the class of 2020? Janet, we'll start with you.
Okay. So almost overnight, I feel that the tragic impacts of COVID-19 have shifted priorities and, for many organizations and leaders, and that's with no exception, the public service sector. So, I'm sure that many students right now have these questions such as, should I continue to job search? Should I reach out to those, contacts that I made throughout the year? All these different apprehensions about what should they be doing right now? And the answer, I think, is yes, because, prior to this, regardless, all of organizations such as our organization are still seeking, we still have roles that are open right now and opportunities that we need to fill during this time, and a lot of these positions were there, prior to the pandemic, and some of them have emerged due to the pandemic. So I think right now the most opportunity you have is in networking and volunteering. I think it's very powerful to networking is a very powerful tool, and right now I think it's a perfect opportunity to volunteer in projects. There's, even if it's something as a hackathon that you are volunteering for that's going to impact the city in a big way, or something such as volunteering for our local organizations that are helping our communities right now. Definitely, I feel that these connections will go a long way, and right now is a perfect time to lend a hand and to also look at ways to help. Besides looking for ways to help, also looking at how to learn from others during this time.
Yeah, that's some great advice. Alex, what about you?
Yeah, to add on to what Janet was stating, there's definitely access to, networking is key, right? That should, be the case regardless of the pandemic that's in place. Keep doing that obviously virtually. If anything, it opens up the doors to not be restricted to just networking locally, right? You can, connect via Zoom. If you want to jump on Messenger rooms via Facebook, that's an option as well, or Google Meet. And which are also, another thing to mention too about that is that those are all technologies that otherwise would have to be purchased through an enterprise. So you're getting access to that to connect with individuals who are, not just here in Austin, across the globe, but also access to free training that most organizations would have to cover. So that's always one plus. But the other key thing I think is the market's really opened up for all job seekers across the globe, and that's not just a big thing for those of us who are experienced job seekers, it's key for the class of 2020, because instead of coming here and just thinking, okay, I'm restricted to Austin, which, hey, we want to keep our students here and our job seekers here, but you can actually go ahead and apply for a job that's in New York City, Dublin, India, Japan, because the new norm, as we're calling it now, doesn't restrict you to one geographic location. It's been proven that everybody can work from home or their home office, from the beach or wherever. And there was a talk before of that actually happening, and instead of it happening 5 years from now, it's happening right now. We're dealing with it, and if I were a job seeker right now, or just a person graduating, it's a pretty amazing spot to be in. Obviously, given it's still going to be super competitive, but you have a lot of options than you would have had last year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd also like to acknowledge that Matt is with us. Matt, we're so glad that you're here. We had an opportunity to give some just brief remarks about ourselves. And right now we're looking at, the question was, now with this disruption, what are the opportunities that we believe have emerged during this time and for the class of 2020? So if you'd like to offer some thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I first want to say thank you for having me here. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties. I could hear what everyone was saying. I guess I just couldn't be heard from my end. But glad to be here, and thank you for the introduction. As we've learned over the past couple of months, everything is able to transition pretty quickly if we need to make it happen. And Schwab's no different in that sense, in terms of being able to go kind of full scale virtual when needed. And similar to a lot of other organizations, we're about 95% capacity of our workforce is all work from home now at this point. And as the others have mentioned, we realize that it's possible to not necessarily always be in the office full time, which is great from a recruitment perspective. We have the opportunity to do something like this, where there's a lot more virtual events and connecting with potential candidates, but also from a recruitment standpoint, it kind of widens our net in terms of where we're able to go out and seek job seekers. If you have someone that is in, say, Nebraska, and we don't have any offices in Nebraska before, and they're not willing to relocate, potentially that may not be a suitable candidate, but now we're widening that net quite a bit, being able to think about virtually how we can do a lot more jobs in a remote sense like we are now. I think the future for us, and we've talked about changes at our organization overall long-term, are kind of, a lot more limitless now. I don't see us overnight saying every role can be work from home full-time by any means, because I think a lot of great things get done in the office, but I think there will soon start to be a lot more flexibility with work schedules, and in the opportunity to maybe have someone that can work remotely a majority of their time versus positions now that heavily have been requiring people to be in the office specifically. So it's been a great lesson for us to kind of broaden our perspective in terms of what a work location really means. And, do we have to pay all these expensive bills to build these fancy buildings and workspaces, things like that? And in the way we're potentially going to go about recruitment in the future as well. So I think it's a great time, and a lot of the students that have had to go to the virtual classes and programs have, I would say, kind of a leg up, because you already know how to work in a virtual setting. I think one of the other things about Schwab is we're split up where our headquarters is in San Francisco, but we've got service centers all over the country, really. And so we had some practice in a virtual sense at that point of it. So we were a little bit more prepared, I would say, than maybe some companies, but we're still learning lessons as with everyone else through this whole craziness.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm just hearing that, even though right now it's a hard time, it has definitely allowed for that expansion of opportunities. And so that's definitely something to look forward to. So here's probably one of the most important questions, right? Is tell us about the full-time opportunities available within your organization. We have attendees who are graduating. We'll have various virtual commencements this weekend. Saturdays is with Brene Brown. We're very excited about that. But what are those opportunities that they can go and research on your organizational websites as soon as we finish this webinar? Alex, we'll start with you.
All right, thanks. So with us, we've got a wide variety of roles available at the moment, not just here, but across the globe, ranging from engineers, either software engineers, customer success managers, account managers, and consultants. Out of the ones listed, quite honestly, just having worked closely with this team and knowing their approach in terms of dealing with graduates and entry-level job seekers, because I saw a really good question in a Q&A where they were questioning, how could they leverage being considered overqualified because of a master's or doctorate degree? And this is actually a really good area. It's our, internally we call it our Informatica professional services area. So if you look on our site, it'll just say professional services. That's the external name. And it's a great area where, you don't need to have, you don't have to be super technical or super, on the enablement customer service side. It's a good blend of both of those skills. And we actually bring them in as associates, and like I said before, entry level and groups of classes. And we'll teach you exactly what you need to learn and then push you out there, whether it be virtually or if you can go out to physical customer locations to work with them. But it's one of the better programs that we have, and that's something we are always actively recruiting for.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? What are some ways that that recent grads can help themselves stand out in that process as they're applying?
Yeah, so with that, really just highlighting, especially for the consultant role, that you have a strong focus on communication, project management, adaptability. And if you've picked up along the way, either via projects or learning on your own, simple coding languages such as, well, I shouldn't say simple, which is something we work with, pretty frequently, but SQL, Python, Java, AWS, and Azure. But just having a good blend of the two will get you in the door. I've worked with a lot of individuals, whether it be people who are graduating with their bachelor's, with their doctorate degree, or people who have just made a complete career change. If you can talk about that, so make sure you put that stuff on your resume, on your cover letter, or on your LinkedIn as well. But when you're speaking to the managers or the recruiters, be able to hone in on that and say that you can you have the technical aspect, but you can also go there and you can talk to actual customers. And I say being able to talk to them too, because there's always a stigmatism with software engineers being so focused on the coding, but not being able to talk as socialize as human beings with the actual hiring managers. So if you have that good blend, that hybrid, you'll fit in really well. Oh, I think you're on mute.
All right, Janet, what about you?
So currently with the city, we have, as of today, I noticed we have 51 openings. And being that we do have about 40 departments, and within every one of those departments, there's a variety of different areas that pretty much when anyone's just graduating with any major could look into. Some of them that I feel that would be great for recent graduates are customer service areas and different social service areas, environmental technicians, engineering positions, and of course, not to say, if you are a humanities major, a lot of, and I say this because I have a lot of students, in the liberal arts that reach out to me and say, hey, are there any opportunities for me, because reading through some of our job descriptions, it could be a little confusing. So, so all of those different areas in multiple departments are available right now. Just to name a few, Austin Water, Animal Services, Austin Resource Recovery, Transportation, Austin Energy. So there's definitely opportunities, especially in all of these essential areas that are crucial to our community right now. So I encourage everyone to look at these opportunities, to look at some of these temporary roles as well that we have with the city right now. We have a great mix of temporary assignments that are project-based, that are, again, holistically impacting our city in many different ways. So we do know and understand that, you know, sometimes when you look at our website, you know, there's a long job descriptions. We have our college team that you can reach out to, which includes myself and a couple of other team members, that we are here to answer any questions and help you, you know, apply for some of these roles, because we understand that they could be a little different than your normal roles that you apply to on a daily basis. So going into our website, the austintexas.gov, research under internships, research full-time and temporary positions, and reach out to our intern page, and I can, you know, definitely you can get that information and our contact information from Summer Salazar after this webinar, or during this webinar. I can, you know, send that information on how to reach out to us to help you in these opportunities.
Yeah, Janet, if you want to just add that that website into the chat, and the attendees can see that. Thank you. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, we've developed a lot of kind of what we call early career hiring programs overall. Being a financial company, a lot of them are geared towards financial industry, but we also have, like kind of speaking to the technology realm, we have the self-proclaimed nerd program, and I don't feel bad saying it because they came up with the name themselves. So it's new employee recruitment and development for a lot of our software engineers. And we hire for, all of our entry-level hires go in the software field, go through that program. And it's a 9-month program where about 80 to 90% of the time you're working on your actual teams on real-world projects, and the other 10 to 20% of the time you're doing challenges as a cohort together. So we hire in classes. We'll have a June class starting here in about a month. And it's actually our largest class. I think there's going to be 69 or 70 people going through it. But basically they do a lot of challenges together. You do some studying for certifications depending on what your role entails. So what certifications are important to your team and your role that you're going to be on. At the end of the 9-month program, you quote unquote graduate from the program and transition to your team full time. And it comes with an increase in pay and a promotion, things like that. So it's geared towards individuals that primarily are recent grads, right? You've been in school your whole life and this is your first time career. It kind of eases that transition into the real world corporate side of things, where we had the instance where some people were, a new grad would have a question, but they were the youngest person or the newest person on their team by 5, 7, 10 years. And so they were kind of almost hesitant to ask those questions at times. So when going through this program, everyone gets kind of the same foundational base. Everyone gets the same questions answered at the same time. And there's a ton of different teams within our technology field. So corporate IT or cybersecurity or working on our app development, things like that. Outside of the technology realm, I do hiring for our internal audit team as well. So we have some entry-level internal audit positions available. We also have another academy program called Financial Consultant Academy for individuals that want to work in a financial branch. So the small branches you see of Charles Schwab, like we have a location downtown or a small one in the Domain area, things like that, where you provide one-on-one financial consultation to our clients. But rather than going directly to the branch, we have an 18-month program where you learn kind of the ins and outs of the business. You start working with our clients over the phone. A lot of consultant roles, you go out and you kind of have to almost build your own book of business, whereas with this program, you go out and you're given a book of business and you just continue to expand on it once you move to the branch. We also have a few other roles that work directly with our clients. So we're a brokerage services firm, so assisting with brokerage accounts, buying, trading stocks, working with our retirement plan services team. So we administer retirement plans for big companies like Facebook or Southwest Airlines, things like that. So you're working directly with our clients that are employed with another company but have the retirement plan with Schwab and assisting them with some of their questions and needs or, you know, helping with events or functions, things like that. So there's a lot of different, what I would consider like programs and academies that we have that are all accessible on our careers website, schwabjobs.com.
Perfect. I love that. I love the idea of being able to provide them, you know, that additional training so that they get familiar with it. So when you think about, Matt, this is for you, just digging in a little bit on that. If a recent grad is just, you know, and this is for all panelists, if they're just hearing, you know, now about these opportunities, what would it take? You know, what's a pro tip that they can do to go, you know, look at the website, but what is that kind of that skill set that you're looking for? And if they have that, they should definitely check out these opportunities.
I would say one of the things I really love about Schwab is the fact that we focus heavily on competencies and what someone is capable of doing versus what they already know a lot of times. So we look for diversity of thought and people providing new perspectives. And a lot of times that means, you know, I'm just using this as an example, but like the technology field, they're not going to all be computer science grads. We want to have people maybe from a liberal arts background or something. I think, and there's coding involved, so you have to have I won't say that, you know, you don't have to have any technical skills to get in the field, but we're looking for diverse thought points coming into our roles. And same thing with the Financial Consultant Academy. I wouldn't say you have to be a financial expert to get into that. I feel like a lot of what we do can be taught. But what we look for heavily is people with a passion behind it. I don't think that's something that can be taught. That's something that you're just passionate about it, and that's, you know, what you want to do with your career interests, or maybe finding, I like helping other people, and I was a X major, but that's also directly applicable to working with our clients on the other end of the spectrum as well. So anytime on your resume, you can talk about clubs that you were a part of. I love seeing students that were heavily active on campus, seeing a resume that's like, I was a member of 3 different organizations and I was a VP of planning, you know, a conference or whatever it may have been. Anytime you can list those leadership skills, working in a team setting, and something I'll also add in is when you're interviewing, I'll say kind of in a way, be humble, and it's okay to admit that you don't know something, but you want to learn about it, because that's a skill that we can build upon. Entry-level, early career talent, we're not having these expectations that you're going to come in and instantly know everything. We understand that, you know, there's learning that goes into it, and that's why we had the opening at the early talent, early career talent kind of timeline, is because we want to have someone that has kind of a base skill set that we can grow, because we see them being maybe even a future leader at Schwab overall.
Mm-hmm. Good, thank you. Alex or Janet, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, to add on to what Matt mentioned, I think soft skills are very important. And I think some of those skills that he pointed out were all, in my opinion, soft skills. And as a manager, I believe that you can't teach soft skills. You can train someone and provide the tools and resources so they can successfully, you know, fulfill the role and do the work. But it's easier to teach someone who's creative, who's a problem solver, who's not afraid to show their passion about the work, and you know, just has, you know, for me, I look for that work ethic, you know, and the leadership experience, whether it's leadership in organizations. I know myself, I was involved in, I want to say, over 10 organizations when I was a college student. And honestly, I feel like it taught me along the way all of these soft skills, you know, to get in front of an audience, to plan, you know, major events, to not be afraid to push the envelope. You know, I think, you know, that's you know, that all comes with the power of networking again. And I want to just continuously hone in on that skill, that, you know, you build all these different soft skills just by being involved, just by getting out of your comfort zone. So I really think that, you know, I myself, as I mentioned, when, you know, I look at for those things, and I, you know, during interviews, I look at for those, you know, people that are, you know, telling me about, you know, how passionate they are about a certain topic, and how they, started a project from finish to the end. And I think that says a lot about individuals and a lot about their work ethic. So yes, I believe that soft skills are very important, and don't be afraid to highlight those when you are interviewing. At the city, we are continuously looking for those individuals, and of course to have that public service, at heart as well, because we are serving our community on a daily basis, and everything that we do as a city employee will impact our city holistically overall. So, yeah.
Thank you. You touched on something, Janet, that I think that I've been hearing over and over is just that skill set of being creative, being a strong, great problem solver. One of the other webinars that we hosted was focused on new skills for the new economy. And those were some of the key skills that we are hearing that are taking priority right now, right, to help organizations or people pivot. So that's just kind of reinforcement, I think, in skill set that recent grads can highlight and share. So I'd like to, spend some time just hearing from each of you about your recruiting and onboarding processes. Will they change due to, this pivoting for COVID-19? What does that look like? What can a recent grad expect in that process if they do join your team? How can we best prepare them? Alex, we can start with you.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna hold off there, but yeah. So we already had like a mixed bag of sorts in terms of our onboarding process and the recruitment process, but that obviously has changed. So with us, it's straight up across Zoom. Once you apply, you'll go through that entire process. If you're chosen to go, on multiple steps, all through Zoom. But in terms of like how grads can best prepare for that, it's just really going to be just being comfortable and in front of a person on Zoom, Skype, or whatever the platform may be. Just being present. Pretty much treat it the same way you would have if you had the interview in person. Because I think it's easy to have these video interviews and to lose track or not look at the camera, not show emotion. You still want to keep that intact. I don't think that ever changes. And then aside from that, just, really in terms of the process, just research the company, ask about the team. I would check in, whether it's my company or any of these companies on the call or other companies, ask about the response to COVID-19. Because even though you're going through their process, what they're doing now or what they did when it first happened should matter. And that's going to impact you whether you join the company today, tomorrow, or a few months from now. And then aside from that, also ask about the culture, because that's going to be key as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What is one of your pro tips for using Zoom?
Choose a good background. My background here is not. this is not my office, but choose a good background that works. I know there's if you're still in the Tiger King, people use that. There's Game of Thrones. I think those are good, but probably not for a professional interview. But aside from that, make sure give yourself 10 minutes before the actual call, because in some cases, your version of Zoom or whatever you're using for that interview may be out of date. There's always going to be potential audio and video issues. So make sure that works first, test it out. There's no shame in doing that, but better you doing that before the interview starts versus wasting 10 minutes of, the recruiter's time. And, everyone has, some extra time on their hands now, but, if they have a back-to-back, you're losing out on a great opportunity to actually ask more questions and to find out more about the company and requisition.
Yeah, absolutely. Janet, what about you?
Well, with the city, I'm very proud how quickly we were able to shift and turn around our onboarding process in regards to making it virtual. So we don't use Zoom, we use Microsoft Teams to conduct, interviews, trainings, and whatnot. So onboarding will be expected to be online, and along with interviewing will also is online. And as far as onboarding and training and new employee orientation, it looks like we're doing it online as well. And many departments are, of course, managing their own protocols on how to do that. But we're all using Microsoft Teams, which is pretty much similar to Zoom. Aside from that, I want to say that the best way to prepare yourself is just to prepare yourself just like you would for any other interview. Research the organization, the department in our case, research the department, ensure that you understand the work that we're doing in that department. And what's really important for us is for you to understand how does it impact the city, because we want to know that you understand what our job is in that specific area, or for that specific role that you're applying to. I guess that's pretty much just to echo. I don't want to repeat a lot more things that Alex said, but I want to echo with him on a lot of things. It's just really just prepare as you would for any other interview, and just be ready to do all of this virtually. And yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Just as a follow-up question to that is, what is a tip you have for recent grads who are going through a virtual hiring process and having to make a decision, without ever stepping foot in that organization, maybe they would have prior to? Do you have any kind of advice or tip there on how to make that decision through this virtual experience, or this, where we're at today?
Well, I guess the advice that I would have is, besides being prepared and understanding that area, I tell students, reach out, use our resources. The city has many free resources to help you prepare for these interviews. One of our resources, especially right now that we have virtual, are mock interviews, because we understand sometimes our interview process could be a little different. Our interview process still consists of panels. So be prepared to be in a virtual setting and be interviewed by a panel of different representatives from our organization. And it's not necessarily from the department that you're applying for, but we like to have panel members from different departments always be a part of those panels, because we want to see the diversity of thought, as Matt, I believe, pointed out earlier. We want to, all of our panel members to have their own, understanding of how that interview went. So mock interviews, I feel that are a good step, especially if you are a first-time job seeker. This is your first time looking at, our departments. I think regardless of whatever department you're looking at, preparing with our team is something that, it's there, it's at access to you, and why not utilize it? And again, we have, I believe I put it up in the chat, where you can reach out to schedule, mock interviews, to connect to our teams, and we're doing all of it virtually, either via phone, or we prepare you, we sit down in a panel and just let you know, hey, this is the way you're going to be interviewing the day that you interview with this department. Not necessarily, these specific questions, but questions that we know that are important to every single panel member that will be sitting on that panel. Yeah. So that's just my advice to that student, especially applying for, city jobs.
Yeah, that's great insight. So any of our attendees who are wanting to apply, there's a great tip to go research how to win or how to ace panel interviews. And also, just for mock interviews and any kind of virtual experience, Texas Career Engagement has an amazing resource called Big Interview, where recent grads and students can practice their virtual interviewing skills. So thank you, Janet. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, so echoing similar thoughts to what all of our onboarding and interview process is all virtual now as well, which, in a perfect world, we're meeting you in person so we can show you our campus and show you, all that we've got to offer and all that good stuff, but just not possible right now. So we even have had what we call interview days for some of our roles, where we bring several people out kind of throughout the course of the day, and part of the interview process is giving them a tour of the campus and talking about Schwab and that sort of thing. So we've had to adjust that schedule quite a bit, and all the interviews are going to be through WebEx platform, so very similar like the others to Skype as well. And I would echo the others' thoughts in terms of, you know, treat it as just like a regular interview, like you're meeting them in person. You know, depending on what the company that you're meeting with, like typical dress code is, kind of dress to that interview like you normally would. I think that goes a long way and shows preparation. I think also kind of agreeing with the other panelists' thoughts in terms of doing your prep work and going to our website and learning about the company culture ahead of time and asking, I think, not just generic questions too. I think it's also important to ask specific questions about, you know, how has your business had to change, or what changes has your team made due to the changes in the environment that we're in right now? Like really specific questions rather than just the generic, how do you like working at XYZ? Mm-hmm. I think that that's really important. And it shows that, you know, you're really well prepared and you put a lot of thought into the interview ahead of time as well. And in terms of onboarding, we're doing all virtual onboarding as well. So we're able to, depending on, because we've got employees all over the country, ship out your work equipment and get you set up ahead of time. So you're ready for kind of virtual training day one until everything's kind of settled and we're able to get back into the office somewhat. So I would say the preparation in terms of like going to the company website or talking about something that the company has done recently in the past, you know, saying, I read such and such article about how y'all recently made this change, whatever it may be, just to show that you've done that extra bit of research to kind of separate yourself from some of the competition as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. And some of what I'm hearing too, just kind of pro tips for attendees, as you're listing various technologies that you're utilizing, Teams, WebEx, things like that. So those are great opportunities to go research those platforms so you can be familiar with them when you go through the process. So we have a good question from an attendee that I'd like to insert. I know we were going to wait till the end on some of the Q&A, but one of them is kind of in that vein of virtual onboarding. And so one of the questions is, with everything moving to an online format, what timeline should an applicant expect for hearing from a recruiter or getting an interview? Should an applicant be reaching out and checking in on application status? Who would like to answer that?
I can chime in. Oh, sorry, Matt. I just want to go first.
No, go right ahead. Go right ahead. I just spoke. Okay. I'll talk to other people too.
Yeah, I think it's tough, right? There's not, as a candidate, you want, what is it like, at least each company having the same approach where, okay, hey, ideally you hear back within 24 to 48 hours. But I would say personally, like, after each step of the process, once you've applied and, what we instruct, and because I handle the candidate experience at Informatica, is we need to be giving our job seekers, especially if they're, referrals as well, we need to be giving them some sort of response back in 24 to 48 hours. Having said that, I would still, as a job seeker, after you applied, if you made it past the first step, you've had the first call with the, whether it be a recruiting coordinator or recruiter, send them a thank you note afterwards, but then 24 to 48 hours would be ideal, especially now. I think with everything being virtual, there's not too much coordination with bringing people into an office location or an office room. So you can 24 to 48 hours, possibly a little bit longer, but if it's taking any longer than that, then that should probably make you question the company you're going to work for then.
Anybody else want to?
So with the city, the process is that of the same. Typically, once a candidate applies, we do show the status of that, wherever you are in the process, by creating a profile on our website. So aside from that, again, this goes back to the resources we have from the college internship program. If you reach out to us, we can help you figure out how, you know, where your application is in the status. We do everything from, you know, just if we need to pick up the phone and call that manager and say, hey, you know, where are we with the status? We have no problem doing that. Of course, if you reach out to us in the college program, and our team is the one that handles all of those inquiries. Aside from that, I said typically I would say anywhere, I know this is a long range, but we say anywhere between 30 to 60 days, a manager will have already selected and reached out to you and for an interview and whatnot. So aside from that, continuing to just check the website, continuing to reach out to us. If you do have an interview, you know, if you would like for us to kind of help you and, you know, do a small mock interview a week before your interview, we are more than happy to do that. So yeah, I mean, just again, prepare, and preparation is the key for you to be successful in that interview, and utilize those resources, and just continue to follow up. You know, follow up is very important.
Yeah, thank you. Matt, I know you had some advice to share.
Yeah, I mean, again, agreeing with both of what the other two panelists have said so far, in that we have a fairly structured process where we try to get back to candidates within 48 hours after we've talked to them. So we try to adhere to that, and I'll say usually it's even before that. Now, in terms of like when the application comes in, and that's specifically like after a recruiter has talked to you and talking about next steps. So we try to move as quickly as we can. It is, I'll say, a little bit more challenging right now, just because some of the people that are making the hiring decisions are kind of split up, working from home, they've got kids at home, or whatever the case may be, rather than being in the office, which can make it a little bit more challenging, but we still stick pretty tightly to that timeline that we have in getting back with candidates about 48 hours after. Similar to what, and I don't remember which one of the other panelists said it, but a thank you follow-up email, I mean, it goes a long way. I'm still a little shocked at how few I receive on a regular basis, even with the number of interviews I do. So it really stands out to send that after you meet with someone. So I would say it's okay to check in with a recruiter after, you know, maybe 2 days or so after talking to them, trying to kind of catch up and say, really enjoyed the conversation, really interested in moving to the next steps of the interview. Please let me know if you need anything. Just kind of almost like a gentle reminder, because sometimes, you know, things get pushed back or they're out of the office or something like that. So I would say typically our rule of thumb is within 48 business hours of an interview, we try to get back to you with kind of an update, whether it's one way or the other. And I'll say, I think we do a really good job of trying to coach someone if they're not moved forward in the process for whatever reason, saying, you know, it wasn't a good fit for this position because of X, Y, and Z. Here's what you could do to prepare for it in the future. You know, these are the questions that we asked that maybe didn't line up with what we were looking for, something like that. So we try to give that feedback from a constructive feedback standpoint, because we view it as the opportunity that maybe this could be a good employee and we want to get them out here again in the future at some point. And then even outside of that, and this is kind of looking behind the curtains a little bit at Schwab overall, but all of these candidates we're talking to are potential clients for us at some point. So we don't want to have a bad experience in terms of like interviewing or looking for a job, because that makes our brand look bad from a, you know, our services that we have to offer as well. So we always think about it from a client point of view in that sense also, and try to give that kind of white glove approach to all the candidates that come through the door, especially the ones that we have contact with through interviews.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's incredible advice for, you know, looking at what that process is, because, you know, sometimes you don't get that opportunity to peek back behind the curtains of, you know, what that looks like as hiring managers and how you're engaging. So thank you for that feedback. When we look at, you know, I'm looking at some tips right now. We have 10 minutes left on this webinar, and I want to be able to provide some really great tips for our recent grads to walk away with so they could implement right away. What is one area of their resume as they're working on it right now that they should really perfect or really make sure that they make the most of it as they're submitting these applications and, you know, during this time? What is your tip for that? I'll start with Janet.
That is a great question. I was actually going to chime in. So I feel that a lot of times that I see applications come through, I know that, you know, I think I've heard the word, you know, or the phrase people say, less is better. But not when you're applying for our positions. We want to know everything, every experience that you've had, whether it's, you know, you were, you know, team captain on some project in one of your classes, you know, whether you were, let's say, I don't know, a leader in your volunteer or a leader within one of your volunteer organizations that you were a part of, or church. You know, I know we had a lot of students that, you know, we sat down and done mock interviews with, and they're like, well, I really don't have work experience, you know, but, you know, and as we started probing them for questions, like, well, I do this for my sorority or my fraternity, and, you know, I'm the philanthropy chair, or I'm the marketing chair. And I'm like, okay, well, that is experience that we need you to write down and to, you know, tell us about, because that's what we're looking for. And it's not a work experience, but it's a leadership experience. You know, you've done something. It's better than putting absolutely nothing. And definitely going through our application. I know for those of you that have applied with the city know that we have, you know, we have all these supplemental questions on top of, you know, the regular application questions that you have to fill out. Do not answer those questions. Definitely answer those questions. It's a great way for the hiring manager to know a little bit more about your soft skills and other skills that you've gained throughout, you know, your time at UT, or your time as a volunteer in the community, or as a student leader. It gives us a great insight on that. And even though we don't see the experience as you're having to list it as far as work experience on your application, we definitely hone in on those supplemental questions that we ask in the application. So never leave those blank. It shocks me to see how many applications that I go through that, you know, leave those supplemental questions absolutely blank. I know they're optional, but don't leave them blank, you know. So that's my tip when you're applying with the city is be very thorough, you know, answer those questions, and just be very prepared, and reach out if you have any questions. It's better than no answers or no responses at all.
Yeah, so answer the questions, because that helps them be able to identify a great candidate. Thank you, Janet. Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I think Janet was spot on. I'm glad she mentioned that, because it's easy to get lost in just trying to, you know, search for some sort of experience to put there. But I mean, if you're doing some things like a sorority outside of, you know, maybe working at Starbucks or something, that counts. You know, I myself, when I got into the industry, like, I was doing social media for free while doing a full-time job for a family restaurant. That was able to, you know, I leveraged that to talk myself into digital marketing when I moved down here to Austin. So that the stuff does matter. But expanding upon that, like, don't just keep it on your resume. Your LinkedIn profile is your digital resume. People are switching, you know, more and more to that. So like, it's easy to invest a lot of time into resume, but I mean, take that same stuff, push it over to LinkedIn. You can even save a profile as a PDF, and it comes across just like a Microsoft Word resume. But with doing that, you know, if you have this, the volunteer experience outside of what you're doing for, you know, with school and with your job, list your accomplishments. But also, if you are, you know, if you have projects which you feel are relevant, like let's say if you want to jump into one of our roles as a consultant, list the project down, because that project may have been for 1 or 2 months, but seeing what you did there and the accomplishments that were, you know, obviously achieved in doing so go a long way.
Thank you. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I would sentiment the comments they've made as well, and don't, you know, decrease the value of working through college. I was a first generation college student and worked my way through college as well. And I think you can take a lot of the skills you learn, service, like they were saying, Starbucks or as a server or whatever, and apply it to whatever job you're trying to get and making it sound like, you know, it's not direct experience in the finance industry, but you can make some of the skill sets that you learned in that role applicable to the job that you're trying to get. I would also highlight any experiences that can showcase leadership or working with a team, speaking to, you know, if you're in a sorority or fraternity, or if you were be part of a community service project, something like that, putting that on the resume, but making sure that you can address that in a setting as to how that's applicable to the role you're trying to get as well. So don't undervalue some of the experiences you've had, because you have limited options before you graduate a lot of times. So the more you can kind of take out of what you have done and translate that to what you want to be doing, I think the better off you'll be on paper and then in an interview setting on top of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all. That's some great advice for them to go back and really start working on and taking a different kind of approach to the application process. Alex, you mentioned LinkedIn, and that's so important. You know, I just want to make sure that we share with our recent grads that we have a LinkedIn Masterclass option as a resource for our students and recent grads to engage in, so that way they can really take their LinkedIn page to the next level. But would you like to share anything about that, LinkedIn in general, from Alex?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, LinkedIn is key. I know some people are afraid to, you know, have a very open approach with that because they want to treat it like their, you know, their Facebook or their Snapchat. But I mean, I can't recommend connecting, you know, with anyone and everyone who would seem relevant to be connected with, whether it's in the, you know, dream companies you want to work for or everybody on this call. You know, send us a connection. I mean, the best thing you could do is actually have access to our network. We probably have someone there who, you know, works at a Google or Facebook, you know, UT here, Charles Schwab. I mean, you know, they can give you some options, but I mean, you're really limiting yourself by not doing that, because it is obviously it's a professional social network, and your online resume and your cover letter all into one. I mean, it's your best chance to really, you know, showcase who you are. And I can tell you firsthand from having LinkedIn Recruiter access is that if you're updating yours and you're putting everything down there that, you know, that we've mentioned today, if we run a search and we're looking for someone that matches your skill set, we're going to find you. But if you're just keeping that on your resume or you haven't made any changes and brought it over to your LinkedIn, it's going to be tough for us to find you. And you're going to be putting in an application with the, you know, 20 million other folks who are out there looking for work. And that's going to be a long uphill battle by doing so.
Yeah, that's great feedback. You know, when we look at how we educate employers and as they are building their digital recruiting strategy, employers are engaging and looking to see who's following them, who's on LinkedIn, who's connected, things like that. So that's some really great advice for our attendees. So we have about 1 or 2 minutes left. I want to just move to the next slide to share some resources for our attendees so they can follow up with some information. But we do have one last question from an attendee. And so I'd like to give you all just an opportunity to list one technical skill that every 2020 job seeker should have. And Matt, we'll start with you.
I would say communication skills. It's a soft skill, but it's I think paramount, and I think that translates to oral communication as well as written communication on your resume. Communication is a key part of every role that we have on our campus. So that's something that I would say above all else is something that we look for in our candidates, is strong communicators that can communicate effectively, both in the virtual setting, in person, and on paper as well.
Perfect. Janet, one technical skill that every 2020 job seeker should have.
Gosh, well, I know that I talked about the power of networking and soft skills. So to me as a manager, when I'm speaking again, I look to echo with Matt side of communication. We know if you have great communication, then you have, you know, more than likely the transparency behind the projects that you will be assigned, you will more than likely be successful. At least that's That's my opinion. So that's why I feel that, you know, again, communication along with transparency are great soft skills. But I guess technical, if I want to say one thing that I really appreciate about my interns is them just knowing their way around Microsoft Office. I mean, and especially right now that, you know, all of a sudden we're having to pivot and use Microsoft Teams for, you know, for other things that outside of regular meetings. It definitely helped that my current intern was able to say, oh, I've used Teams before for live events, and I'm excited to help you with all of that. And I think that was definitely really refreshing. So I think it's just an added on value if you have great communication skills, and then on top of it all, you are able to, you know, help us, you know, with this transition right now, going into this virtual environment.
Thank you. Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I think we're all thinking the same thing. It's going to be, yeah, I'd be lying, and we all would be lying if we said, oh, hey, there's like one major technical skill, right? But like the other panelists said, I mean, definitely communication. You're going to be using all these different platforms. You know, if you know Slack, you know Teams, you know Outlook, you know Gmail, vice versa. But aside from that, you've got to be proactive with whatever you're using. Be proactive and be super reliable, because if anything, you're gonna be dealing with constant change. You know, we've all jumped from using one program one day to the next. Now, you know, everyone went from Skype to Zoom to Google Meet, and then, you know, Slack to Teams. But you're just gonna have to be. I guess I would just say it again. You know, just be super proactive, reliable, be ready for change. But I can't give you one technical skill to look at. Yeah, I'd be lying to you if I said that.
Well, thank you all. For the interest of time, we're a little past 4, but I just want to thank you all so much for sharing your time and insights to support the class of 2020. There's no doubt that y'all are making a huge impact on the future, because we know that what starts here changes the world. So hook 'em, and thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.